Hello friends, welcome to my channel Sushant Chess Wise. Today we are going to look at the next topic, that is the opening for black, and we are going to start the discussion with the French defense. So we have covered whatever stuff in French defense that is with the white side. From now on I will be making some videos where we will try to understand black's ideas, what are the variations. Today we will see what are the options available for white. So main moves which are there for white in the French defense. So after the moves e4, e6, we see that the starting of the French defense with the move e6. White often plays the most obvious move d4 here, which happens to be the main line. There are some other moves which are possible. I just mentioned two of them, d3 and queen e2, which are played. We will be discussing them also in the future lessons. So most obvious move is d4. White gets both his pawns to the center, opens both his bishops, and he is about to develop his knights. So what is the idea of the move e6? With the move e6, we see that black has surrendered the center to white. So white is getting space in the center. Black wants to play the move d5. And when he wants to play d5, after ed he doesn't want to capture with the queen. So the move e6 controls the square d5, it opens the queen and the bishop both. So black plays the move d5, and from here on there are various variations. I will try to show you some of the opening ideas today, what all lines are possible, what are the options which white can choose, and we will explore little bit today how black should play. So the main problem which black faces in the French defense is the bishop on c8, which gets stuck because of the black's own pawn on e6. So at lower level the most common move is e5. White plays e5, he fixes the pawn on e6, shuts the c8 bishop forever. So white players feel that they have got more space, the pawns have given space to the pieces. Behind this pawn all the space belongs to white. So he sees that his pawn has come on the 5th rank. Knight on g8 is deprived of f6, bishop f8 cannot go to d6, and the c8 bishop is stuck. So many advantage with just one move. But what happens? White has wasted one more pawn move. So 3 pawn moves already made, and the advanced center does what? It makes the d4 pawn somewhat weak. So black starts with the plan of going c5, immediately putting pressure on the d4 pawn. So what black gets here is he tries to put pressure on d4, and apart from c8, everything will become active very quickly. So white controls the center here with the move c3. Black plays nc6, white goes nf3. And here the move qb6 happens to be the main move, and there is the second move bd7. Since this is an introductory lesson, I am not going to go too much into details of each line, but I will be covering the move bd7, which I have played myself also, and I find it that it is very interesting and not as detailed as the qb6 line. So what happens? We will avoid too much theory and we will try to get into positions where white may not know that much. bd7 is another main move. Black wants to get the rook to c8. He takes on d4 and often plays f6 immediately. So the plan of f6 happens to be the main move. When queen is on b6, f6 comes very late. So white center will be attacked both ways. See, generally Nimzovich always said that we should attack the base of the pawn chain. But here we are going to put pressure on base and the head of the pawn chain both. So this happens to be one of the main discussion of our analysis in the upcoming lessons. Here white has 4 options. He can go bishop d3, he can play the bishop to e2, bd3 and be2 enable white to castle. Apart from that, many people feel that after bd3, cd, knight b4 comes. So a3 becomes another important move. It stops nb4 and a future bb4 check as well. And some players play the move dc, trying to see that after dc, bishop c5, b4 attacks the bishop moves away and then maybe b5, again harassing the knight on c6. So white tries to gain space on the queen side over there. So these are some of the lines which are possible for white. So this is about the advanced variation which we are going to cover in more detail in the upcoming class. Now we will look at some other options which white has. After the moves e4, e6, d4, d5, white has another option, that is the move nc3. The main line happens to be the move nc3, which is most popular. Knight is developed, knight attacks the pawn on d5. Black has two attacks on d5 after the move knight c3. Black also has two supports. White is also protecting his pawn on e4. If d into e4 is taken, then the knight will control e4. We have done a lot of games based on de and e4 earlier. Here black has three main moves. There is de4, there is nf6 called the classical variation or the Stenitz variation, and there is bb4. bb4 is called the Wiener variation. Black develops the bishop, attacks the pawn on e4. Indirectly he is putting pressure on the knight on c3. See, directly the knight is pinned and indirectly is putting pressure on the e4 pawn. So we have seen some games of this Wiener line also where white tried an early qg4 move. So this we will be considering with black and we will be going in more detail. Here white often plays the main move e5, releasing the center, gaining space, and black immediately attacks with the move c5. The center pawn is attacked as we discussed before. Black tries to immediately attack the base pawn and force white to play the move a3. Without a3 it's very difficult to protect d4. If knight f3, then cd and d4 and then knight c6, creating attack on d4 and d5. If knight c6, then bc. So knight f3 happens to be a mistake. Once d4 becomes weak or we remove the d4 pawn, then e5 really becomes weak. And after the move nc6 we see that if white has to take nc6, then after bc black's center becomes better, and there are then other ways to attack the e5 pawn. Mainly there is the move f6 or qc7 which put pressure on the e5 pawn. So here black will become at least equal. So white plays the move a3 and after the move bishop c3, bc, black goes for the move knight e7. So this happens to be another main line here. White has various ways. White's one of the main moves, topical move is qg4, where black can sacrifice the g7 pawn. We are going to do a detailed lesson on that. And whatever lines I have played as black, I will try to discuss them in some detail through these lessons. So white has managed his center well now. White has the bishop pair. So what black has got against that? Black is going to put pressure on the d4 square, knight coming to c6, e7 knight going to f5, queen often going to a5, bishop d7, long castle, and break with the move f6. So this is a standard practice. Black plays the move f6. He sees where this knight belongs, either to f5 to put pressure on d4 or to g6 to put pressure on e5, depending on what white does. So this is about the Wiener variation. Let's look at one more line. e4, e6, d4, d5. The next main line happens to be the move knight d2, which looks very, what we can say, ugly at first, because as per the opening principles we see the knight is coming in the path of its own pieces. Bishop on c1 is blocked, the queen's path is blocked, and knight supports the pawn on e4. Knight doesn't attack anything, but this knight d2 move is meant to stop bishop b4, and he puts real question to black that what he is going to do. If he plays c5 to attack the center immediately, then white plays ed, and then black has an isolated pawn later on. See, after c5, ed, ed5. Here queen d5 has become very popular lately. Black has another option of playing nf6, immediately attacking the e4 pawn when white does e5, knight goes to d7. Here people must be wondering what is going to happen to the c8 bishop. It's totally cramped up. So for the time being, black says that anyway the bishop on c8 is blocked. So he tries to put pressure on e5, and soon the next move will be c5, again attacking d4. So white first develops the bishop to d3. The bishop comes on the long diagonal eyeing the h7 pawn. Black attacks the center with d4. White plays c3 protecting the center, and after the move knight c6, white goes for the move knight e2. The knight on e2 guards d4, and the f3 square is now vacated for the d2 knight, because we can see that the d2 knight had no other place other than the f3 square. This knight cannot go to b3 because of c4 fork, and we see that soon after the move qb6, white will arrange his other knight on f3, go castle, and we will see that white's pieces will be free. Once he has protected the center well, then the black c8 bishop becomes problem. So black has to make a choice whether he wants to play for the move f6 quickly, or he wants to go for the qb6 line. So we are going to discuss this also in great detail. Finally, after the moves e4, e6, d4, d5, white has e into d5, the exchange variation, which is the least popular of the lot, because after ed what we see is a totally symmetrical position. Means it's same for both white and black. Both have the same e file open, and we see the structural difference doesn't exist at all. So what happens after the move bd3, bd6, knight f3, knight f6, castle, castle. A very much symmetrical play is created, and white often likes to play bg5, knight d2, pawn to c3, rook e1, like the line which we discussed against the Caro-Kann. Same way white plays here against the French defense. And for black, it's very difficult to generate any play. The problem here is if black is looking for a win, then he is not able to create any imbalance with this structure. So the line which we are going to do is we are going to try to make imbalanced play, and we will try to break the symmetry. Let's have a look at one idea. After the moves bd3, bd6, when white plays nf3, black can go for the move bishop g4. He wants to put pressure on the f3 knight, and this knight will often go after the move castle to the square e7. When bg5 will not be an annoying pin, black will have option of going f6, and black often goes nc6. When after c3 he goes qd7 and long castle, and that creates a lot of imbalance in the position, and we see a sharp play happening. White and black both have their chances in that position, but that way we will be able to fight for the initiative in that position. So this was basic about all the four possibilities by white. We will start exploring each one of them in detail from the upcoming lessons. I hope you are enjoying these lessons. Do like, share and subscribe the channel. Thanks for your time.